Wasabi guys, welcome back to another video here. We are going to be talking about spoiler season. We have adventures in the Forgotten Realms. This is the Dungeons & Dragons set. We have a lot of cool cards to go over here for the 29th and the 30th of June. Now I don't translate every single card, so please bear with me. I'm only going to go over what seems to be important, like rares and mythics. I'm not familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, so I apologize if I have no idea how to pronounce these. 9 mana mono green legendary dinosaur creature. When Tarask enters the battlefield, if it was cast, it gains haste and ward 10. So you're not touching that. Whenever Tarask attacks, it fights target creature defending player controls. And one of the funny things I'm reading here in a comment section, how does this guy not have trample? He's literally trampling over a village. How does he not have trample? That's funny. And then we get a land here, Hive of the Eye Tyrant. So this is another themed land for Dungeons & Dragons. If you control 2 or more other lands, Hive of the Eye Tyrant enters the battlefield tapped. It taps to add 1 black mana, and you can pay 4 mana until end of turn. Hive of the Eye Tyrant becomes a 3/3 black beholder creature with menace, and whenever this creature attacks, exile target card from defending player's graveyard. It's still a land. And then we get another land here. This is Hall of the Storm Giants. If you control 2 or more other lands, Hall of the Storm Giants enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps to add 1 blue. You can pay 6 mana until end of turn. Hall of the Storm Giants becomes a 7/7 blue giant creature with ward 3. It's still a land. So these are basically man lands, but for Dungeons & Dragons. We have Minion of the Mighty, 1 mana rare creature kobold with menace. And it has pack tactics. Whenever Minion of the Mighty attacks, if you attacked with creatures total power 6 or greater this combat, you may put a dragon creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So that's pretty much on theme with kobolds and dragon worship. We have Sphere of Annihilation, a black artifact, X costed there. Sphere of Annihilation enters the battlefield with X void counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile Sphere of Annihilation. All creatures and planeswalkers with mana value less than or equal to the number of void counters on it, and all creature and planeswalker cards in graveyards with mana value less than or equal to the number of void counters on it. So that's a nice little removal spell there. Don't know how convenient that's going to be if you do have to wait for your upkeep. And then we get a cool legendary beholder creature, Xanathar Guild Kingpin. So 6 mana blue-black. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent until end of turn. That player can't cast spells. You may look at the top card of their library at any time. You may play the top card of their library, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast spells this way. So it's another Send Triplets-like commander. The only downside here is that I think it's more limited than Send Triplets. You don't get to look at their hand, you don't get to play spells from their hand, but that's still a pretty fun thing to play with whenever you're able to steal your opponent's cards. We have Den of the Bugbear. If you control 2 or more other lands, Den of the Bugbear enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for 1 red, and you can pay 4 mana until end of turn. Den of the Bugbear becomes a 3/2 red goblin creature. Whenever this creature attacks, you create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. It's still a land. That's pretty good value. You'll still have a token even if it leaves. We have Flame Skull, a 3 mana mythic creature, skeleton, with flying. It can't block, and it has rejuvenation. When Flame Skull dies, exile it. If you do exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn, you may play one of those cards. So I guess that's pretty cool. It's a flyer in red. You can be pretty aggressive. Don't know why that's a mythic though. That doesn't seem like something that should be a mythic. We have Icing Death Frost Tyrant. So 4 mana white dragon, flying and vigilance. Legendary Dragon 2. When Icing Death Frost Tyrant dies, create Icing Death Frost Tongue, a legendary white equipment artifact token with equipped creature gets +2 power, and whenever equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and equip 2. So that's pretty cool. You have a white dragon here for equipment decks. So we have Treasure Chest. This is cool because there's also a card called Mimic. So you get the treasure chests that won't kill you if you open them, and you get the ones that will. I'm guessing this is kind of a reference to that card because you see a bunch of bones and clearly something's up here that could be a mimic and you don't know yet. So the ability is you pay 4 mana and sacrifice it. You roll a d20. If you get 1 trapped, you lose 3 life. If you get numbers 2 through 9, you create 5 treasure tokens. That's pretty cool. If you get numbers 10 through 19, you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. That's even better. And if you get 20, you search your library for a card. If it's an artifact card, you may put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So all of these are very good except for one, of course. You have a 19 out of 20 chance of getting something pretty decent. And then we have Circle of Dreams Druid. So it's a 3-mana elf druid that taps for 1 green, equal to the number of creatures you control. That right there is pretty sweet. And then we have Cave of the Frost Dragon, the white land. If you control 2 or more other lands, comes into play tapped, it taps for white mana, and you can pay 5 mana. Cave of the Frost Dragon becomes a 3/4 white dragon creature with flying until end of turn. It's still a land. We have the Black Staff of Waterdeep, so 1 blue legendary artifact. You may choose not to untap the Black Staff of Waterdeep during your untap step, and it has an ability called Animate Walking Statue. You can pay 2 mana and tap it. Another target non-token artifact you control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature for as long as the Black Staff of Waterdeep remains tapped. And you can only activate that as a sorcery, but that's pretty cool for only 1 blue mana. We have Gelatinous Cube, a 4/3 with Engulf. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-ooze creature an opponent controls until Gelatinous Cube leaves the battlefield. And it has a dissolve ability of X and 1 black. Put target creature card with mana value X exiled with Gelatinous Cube into its owner's graveyard. I love the flavor there. That makes perfect sense why that would happen. If they're going to be dying while inside the cube, that means no one's there to save them. And then we have Grazolax, Illithid Scholar, a 3-mana blue horror, a 3/2. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. And whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Pretty sweet. We have Orb of Dragon Kind, a 2-mana red artifact. Pay 1 mana and tap it, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells or activate abilities of dragons. And you can pay 1 red mana and tap it, sacrifice Orb of Dragon Kind. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a dragon card from among them and put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So a very dragon-focused card there. We have Werewolf Pack Leader, 2 green mana human werewolf with pack tactics. Whenever Werewolf Pack Leader attacks, if you attack with creatures total power 6 or greater this combat, you draw a card, so that's a recurring ability. You can pay 4 mana until end of turn. Werewolf Pack Leader has base power and toughness 5/3, gains trample, and isn't human. And then we get a mythic here, the Book of Vile Darkness, 3 black legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you lost 2 or more life this turn, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And you can tap it to exile the Book of Vile Darkness and artifacts you control named Eye of Vecna and Hand of Vecna. Create Vecna, a legendary 8/8 black zombie god creature token with Indestructible. It gains all triggered abilities of the exiled cards. So I'm guessing we have to see those other cards first and what they do. So we have Adult Gold Dragon, a 5-mana red-white dragon, flying lifelink and haste, a 4/3. We have Ebon Death Dracolich, so 4 mana black zombie dragon, legendary creature. Flash flying, it enters the battlefield tapped. You may cast Ebon Death Dracolich from your graveyard if a creature not named Ebon Death died this turn. So that is pretty cool. You're able to consistently just replay a creature from the graveyard. Might be a cool commander for that reason. We have Okra Jelly, a X-green creature ooze trample. Okra Jelly enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and it has an ability called Divide. When Okra Jelly dies, if it had 2 or more +1/+1 counters, create a token that's a copy of it at the beginning of the next end step. That token enters the battlefield with half of those +1/+1 counters rounded down. And then we have White, a 2-mana black zombie soldier, a 3/2, it enters the battlefield tapped, and it has Life Drain. Whenever a creature dealt damage by white this turn dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token and exile that card. We have Wish. You may play a card you own from outside the game this turn, so for 3 mana in red, that's pretty powerful. We have Dragon Turtle, 3 mana blue Dragon Turtle, with Flash and Drag Below. When Dragon Turtle enters the battlefield, tap it, and up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap steps. And then we have Oswald Fiddlebender, a 2-mana white legendary Gnome Artificer. You can pay 1 white mana and tap it, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact card whose mana value is equal to the mana value of the sacrificed artifact +1, then put it onto the battlefield. Shuffle your library, activate only as a sorcery. So that's essentially like a birthing pod for artifacts, but on a creature ability. So I think that is pretty powerful. And then we get another Planeswalker here. We get Zephyr Archduke of Avernus, 4 mana red legendary Planeswalker. The +1 creatures you control get +1 power and gain haste until end of turn. So that's great, you get a haste enabler on a planeswalker, and that's a plus. The 0, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And you can alter for -6, you get an emblem with at the end of the first combat phase on your turn, untap target creature you control. After this phase there is an additional combat. So you get some pretty solid abilities there. We have Yuant Malison, 2 mana blue snake rogue. Yuant Malison can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. Whenever Yuant Malison deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. There's a dungeon mechanic in this new set. Enter the first room or advance to the next room. I do appreciate how with this set, there's like a weirdness, there's something close to conspiracy. There's like the game within the game, and that always makes these better. And then we have Meteor Swarm, 3 mana red X spell. A sorcery, it deals X damage divided as you choose among X target creatures and or planeswalkers. So that's pretty cool. You do have a set amount of damage, but if you have a damage tripler, a damage doubler, that's even more impressive. We have Dungeon Descent. Enters the battlefield tapped, it's a land, taps to add a colorless, and we could pay 4 mana to tap an untapped legendary creature we control. We venture into the dungeon, activate only as a sorcery. We have Zalto, Fire Giant Duke, a 5 mana legendary giant barbarian. With trample, and whenever he's dealt damage, venture into the dungeon. So we have a lot of dungeon-focused mechanics here. We have Varus, Silvery Moon Ranger, 3 mana green human elf ranger, with reach in ward 1. Whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, venture into the dungeon. This ability triggers only once each turn. And whenever you complete a dungeon, you create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. We have Triumphant Adventurer, 2 mana white-black human knight, a 1/1 with Death Touch, and as long as it's your turn, Triumphant Adventurer has first strike. And whenever he attacks, venture into the dungeon. And then we have Froghemoth, a 5 mana 4/4 frog horror with trample and haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many cards from their graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each card exiled this way. You gain 1 life for each non-creature card exiled this way. So that's going to do it for today's spoilers here, going up to June 30th. Getting out of the way all the rares and mythics. Some pretty cool cards here. There is a focus on Dungeons and Dragons. It does really bring to mind the conspiracy mechanic from Conspiracy, where there was a game within the game. It involved more than just Magic the Gathering with a Dungeons and Dragons skin. There are actual mechanics here that are fun, that are going to keep you engaged. So let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. Void here signing off. See you all next time.